Wealth to me is being available for my family in ways that is consistent and present. Being able to impact our heritage in ways that's consistent and present. Being able to, if I want to think about money generally, I will be thrilled if our family always knows that Brandon Goswick can pay for the bill anywhere we go eat, any vacation we take, and that it's going to not inhibit or prohibit somebody from attending because of money.
Most people are trying to chase a rate of return or hit this moonshot because they think once they hit it, life's good, we're done, we're out, right? Like, we don't have to worry anymore. But that's not the case. Like, once you get it, and I've seen these people hit some big time numbers, and it's like, all right, well, what's the next thing? Because if you don't like who you are now, you're not going to like yourself when you get there.
To me, wealth just boils down to living your sole purpose, being intentional. What a lot of people don't understand is like the worst financial decisions, they're not necessarily about bad investments as much as it is about giving up control. Like, people rely on these outside forces. They rely on the stock market, they rely on the government, they rely on their employers, and they give away power over their financial life.
Welcome to the Cashflow Legendz podcast with your hosts Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
Welcome to Cashflow Legendz. Nate, Brock, and I are so thrilled to be here and just to get to share the things that we get to experience on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And as I was thinking about the intro today, I was reminded that gratitude goes a long, long ways. So I'm going to start with some gratitude, two things, and then I'd love for you guys to share something that you're grateful for. So one, I'm grateful for you guys because just the fact that there's accountability to show up and do something with other guys that you believe in goes a long ways to helping me grow. And you don't think about it until you stop and really, go, what am I grateful for and why is that a blessing? Two, the other thing I'm grateful for is I woke up this morning. My father dropped our next to youngest off. He had his tractor loaded down. He had a load of rock coming in that was delivered. And in an hour or less, he completely regraded our road and smoothed it back out over about 400, 500 feet. And I can take that for granted sometimes because of how good my parents and in-laws are to me. But man, I just was overcome with gratitude as I'm sitting here doing what I want. And I can see out my window that he's being selfless and doing something for our family. So I'm grateful, guys. So what are you grateful for today?
Well, yeah, definitely grateful for us to be able to do this. Definitely grateful for you guys. It does mean a lot when you can come together like-minded in many ways, but also different in others, so you can challenge each other. Aside from my family, obviously, I'm grateful just to be able to do something that I enjoy doing. Every aspect of what I get to do in this business, I enjoy doing. The things that I get to do working at the church with students, I enjoy doing that. So I'm grateful that I just get to enjoy what I do.
I am grateful for doctors and the work that they get to do in our lives. Just feeling under the weather and being able to run to them and get some help pretty quick and get what we're looking for.
Well, today we're going to be talking about worst financial decisions that we've made at whatever level you guys feel comfortable and how we recovered or how we are currently recovering and what that looks like. And I'm going to tie it into this. So, Brock, I don't know if we've talked about this, but Nate and I had a live event this past Saturday locally where we live. And we had around 20 or 25 people there total between everybody that was there. And that was on purpose. We wanted it to be intimate enough where people felt comfortable because we knew most people arriving, this was way outside of their comfort zone. And we have to remember that because it's not uncomfortable for me, Nate, or Brock to show up at an event now and talk and meet new people. But 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it was super uncomfortable for me. The key theme of the 5-6 hours we spent together was that money is just a tool that is either working for you or you're working for it. It's allowing you to accomplish the things that you feel great about, or it's keeping you from accomplishing the things you feel great about. The number of conversations we heard related to people's humility and the pain points they had and the tough lessons they learned, and the willingness to share it in a group of other people was so cool to experience. But it was a great reminder that sometimes we need to put our money and our butt where we say we want to grow, which means those people had to get up and they chose to register, they chose to pay, they chose to show up in a room with potentially 80-90% of people they didn't know, and they chose to be vulnerable enough to go, I don't know everything and I want to grow and I want to learn. We're going to open up the portal a little bit at whatever level y'all want to go on worst financial decisions that we've experienced and how we have or did recover from them and what we've learned so far. Who wants to go first?
I'll start off by saying this, because this is something that we did not recognize early on. One of the most damaging financial decisions is failing to invest in yourself. We say this all the time. You are your greatest asset. So the time, money, and energy that you put into expanding your knowledge, that's going to create a far higher yield than anything that you're going to gamble on in the market or real estate or anything like that. The biggest financial mistake that you can make is not investing in yourself. I'll sort of preface it that way. From a personal standpoint, my biggest financial mistake that I've made is not always following the sound advice that I teach. Like as someone who operates in this space, like I mean, I can say humbly, like I've made decisions that I would never allow one of my clients to make when it comes to, doing things with money or whatever, chasing rates of return, stuff like that. Fortunately, I have learned my lessons on all of those things. So I can come here now and say with confidence that, yeah, I'm not chasing rates of return. I am more focused on investing in myself and building a strong foundation than, whatever the next shiny object might bring me or something like that. So for me personally, chasing rates of return, chasing shiny objects and things like that, those were some of the mistakes that I made early on. In addition to chasing rates of return, also, when you have a little bit more money than you've had previously, all of a sudden things that weren't necessarily affordable at the time, all of a sudden they become affordable. But just because you can pay for something doesn't mean you can afford it.
All right. I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to let Nate completely off the hook, and I'm not going to go too personal. But Nate, there was something, because Nate and I are so close and we talk every day, in one of those chasing rates of returns that you're referring to, and I won't say what it was, but like that you and I walked through together. Talk about the impact that had on your well-being and your mental clarity and your bandwidth and your stress levels, and how long before, confessed is not the right word, when you are accountable to other people that you trust, you want to tell them and communicate about it, but it's still not comfortable. Talk about that a little bit, Nate.
Well, when everything was going up, I felt like I could run through a brick wall.
Yep.
When everything started going down, I felt like a feather could knock me over. I mean, that's really what it felt like. And I'd been out of the market for a little while, so I hadn't got to experience the ups and downs and things like that because I was so focused on my infinite banking strategy and everything like that. But then once I really started kind of building some foundation, building some reserves and everything like that, I started thinking about ways that maybe I could speed up the process on some of this stuff. Like I said, when everything was going up, it was awesome. But as soon as it started turning, that's when it became really difficult. And going from a very, very high level of confidence to no confidence whatsoever, and being in this financial space, even though I can show up on a call and teach someone exactly what they need to do, when I was dealing with my own personal stuff simultaneously, it made it really difficult. They talk about that imposter syndrome, which is just imposter syndrome is really just a severe lack of confidence in what you're doing. And so my confidence was just severely impacted. That spilled out into all aspects of my life, relationships, family, business. I mean, you name it. So having the slow and steady mentality that I have now, where I get to continue to build on my confidence is really powerful because I don't have this roller coaster of emotions like I used to.
Thanks for going a level deeper. I knew that wouldn't be comfortable, so I appreciate that.
That was good. That was good. So, remind me, Brandon, what was the original question?
So our worst financial decision or decisions and how we have or are recovering.
Yeah. So, my first one was when I started making money, I started buying all kinds of stuff, and I was good at it too. I those box subscriptions to golf companies, buddy. I think I had them all because I could pay for them all and I could afford them all. Um, and I had some lifestyle creep in there very easily. But I have recovered from that and been better about that because of how I've structured my cash flow using things like currents and having accountability with my life. Others are, just like Nate, there have been some things that I have chased rates of return or bought things out of, let me buy this thing so that you see my loyalty and my, hey, I can do this, rather than, hey, let me take a step back. Does this actually align with my criteria and rules? And does it make sense for me to do this? Or would it be even better for me to say no in that moment?
What do you notice the most, Brock, as you reflect back on those things you just referred to? We say a lot of times money isn't always math and math isn't always money. I don't think we fully understand sometimes till we're out of the chaos how unhealthy in all aspects of life those tough decisions we made that we regret or learn from really impacted us. What are some things that you noticed as far as maybe behavior or bandwidth or focus or any of that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times what it comes down to is, most people are trying to chase a rate of return or hit this moonshot because they think once they hit it, life's good, we're done, we're out, right? Like, we don't have to worry anymore. But that's not the case. Like, once you get it, and I've seen these people hit some big time numbers, and it's like, all right, well, what's the next thing? Because if you don't like who you are now, you're not going to like yourself when you get there. And what we often see is most people are trying to get to a destination, but there is no destination. You got to fall in love with the process of who you're becoming and what's going on in your world. And frankly, until you die, because that, I mean, that's life. You're not just going to hit, the lottery and then be done and be happy and everything's going to be hunky dory, right? It's what are you doing in your everyday life to become a better version of yourself and know that, you know, hey, as money comes in and I'm saving some of that, where am I putting that? How is that aligning with what I have and what I want in my life? Because if you don't know that, no rate of return, no large number will ever help you or suffice what you're trying to battle within.
It's interesting that you mentioned the lottery because I would venture to say some people would testify that their worst financial decision they ever made was winning the lottery because it destroyed their life. Because you think about this, there are people who become ultra successful and it gets to the point where it's not about the money or anything like that. There's people who become ultra successful, or maybe ultra wealthy would be a better word to say it. Become ultra wealthy, and then they lose their purpose because they basically have everything. There's nothing else that they can work towards financially because they can buy anything they want many, many times over and all that stuff. And same thing with someone who wins the lottery. Now they have amount of money that they never thought would ever see or whatever. And now they've lost their purpose. And not only that, but everybody and their brothers come out of the woods, wanting help with this and that. And all these different people are hitting them with these different investment ideas, whatever. There's just horror story after horror story about people who have won the lottery. That's a good lesson really in any aspect of life, personal, business, whatever, is slow, sustainable growth over time comes with a lot less pain points than explosive growth.
Y'all remember that song? I don't remember who sings it. You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. It's an old country song. Brock, you probably have no clue what we're talking about. Do you
I
remember
think I
that?
think I know. I think I know.
Okay. It kind of reminds me of a couple of things. Yes, I'm going to go from country song to Ecclesiastes. So, but I'm going to stop at Nelson Nash going backwards. So, country song, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. And I'm going to share one of mine too, is that I needed to chase opportunities as being an entrepreneur because I'd never been one before, had no experience with it. So when I started learning a little bit about money, I thought I was a cat's meow and I could do anything related to any business. That ended up being for me real estate. And yeah, I did over 40 transactions in the last 7 years, but I swung and missed on about half of them. Even if the other half were singles and doubles, it doesn't matter because for simple terminology, they washed each other out. We don't have enough time to go through this, guys, but I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt the impact that that has had on my lack of mental clarity or needing to fully trust the Lord because I knew I'd screwed up. But the kicker is it was a slow creep. I didn't realize how much I needed to unravel things until it was such a big rubber band ball that I'm like, this is not going to get fixed in a day. It's going to take a lot of energy and effort and focus and bandwidth to start unraveling this thing so that I can stay focused on what I'm best at, on my true purpose. Now, here's the cool thing. My true purpose is very clearly in line with what Nate and Brock and I do every day because almost always, if I'm aware, I have an opportunity through my words and more importantly, through my actions, not that I always do it, to glorify the Lord. And if we come to Ecclesiastes, the most successful wise man ever, who got away from God's, patience and love and kindness and wisdom, Solomon, says at the very end of Ecclesiastes, that's the whole story. Here's now my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commandments, for this is everyone's duty. Well, if we know simply what his commandments are, in there is love others and love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. You know what I mean? And they're pretty basic as far as what that means. And so I can see clearly now that even though real estate could have been successful for me, it was not going to allow me to be in alignment for God's purpose for glorifying him and following his commandments as much as what Nate and I and Brock and I do every day. And if I needed a reminder that, I got it full force Saturday from 9 to 2 p.m. at our live event, because the majority of that event was about people's lives being impacted and being encouraged in their walk with the Lord. Money was just the thing that was going to be the lighter fluid for the purpose of their life that they were working towards or trying to obtain. There's a key piece that you guys have all discussed. What is wealth? What is success? If we don't know what that is in our life, we're firing bullets at a target that we don't even see. And so Nate and I have been punched in the gut this last year in a good way. Here's a clear thing I know that is wealth to me now, guys, that I couldn't have told you 5 years ago when I got addicted to buying stuff and entrepreneurship. Wealth to me is being available for my family in ways that is consistent and present. Being able to impact our heritage in ways that's consistent and present. Being able to, if I want to think about money generally, I will be thrilled if our family always knows that Brandon Goswick can pay for the bill anywhere we go eat, any vacation we take, and that it's going to not inhibit or prohibit somebody from attending because of money, because of the impact of family and value. That's it. It's that simple. I do not care that I drive a 2011 F-150. How do I know that? Because I drove the nicest truck you could ever drive that had about a $1,400 a month payment on it that the world says was success. And it wasn't contributing to those other things I just said are success now. So I wouldn't trade the tough lessons I've learned and the numerical impact financially negatively that those decisions have made. Do I wish Brock or Nate could have grabbed me by the neck and go, you don't want to do this, man. This is your future. Yeah, of course. But I still don't know if I'd trade it because I don't know if the impact of the lesson would have marinated as deeply and rooted as much into my core if I hadn't experienced the pain that came from it. Like, you can't have both or it's not worth it.
That truck looked good to everybody except you.
Yeah.
You thought it looked good for about 30 days until that first payment was due.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I started thinking about how much are the tires going to cost to replace it? What if we have a shock issue? Yada, 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 yada. And
Well, Talking about wealth, I mean, it really, to me, wealth just boils down to living your sole purpose, being intentional. What a lot of people don't understand is like the worst financial decisions, they're not necessarily about bad investments as much as it is about giving up control. Like people rely on these outside forces. They rely on the stock market, they rely on the government, they rely on their employers, and they give away power over their financial life. One of the smartest moves that someone can make to sort of reclaim their power is understanding money, taking intentional action, and making sure that your finances are in alignment with your values. That's where true wealth really begins.
That's pretty good, Nate. I think that when I always think about this, there's a sermon we had one night at midweek for our youth group, and the lady was talking about the average teenager spends, I think, like 3 hours on social media a day. And if you just spent 20 minutes a day reading the Bible, you would be able to finish that by the end of the year. And I'm thinking, okay, well, yes, I think that's priority number one. But number two is like, there's still 2 hours and 40 minutes left. And what happens if you just spent 20 minutes a day looking at finances and understand that? And I think to my friends, acquaintances, people in my life that I associate with sometimes, especially this time of year. And it's all about fantasy football and college football and what's going on. And I'm like, man, if you just put in the same amount of time or half the time that you do on your fantasy football team or your college team, you would be so much more knowledgeable about finances. You would know what's going on in your world. You would know what's happening. And it doesn't take that much time to just sit down and learn. And I just wish that some of these guys would just say, hey, I need to take some intentionality about what is going on here. One of the things we're working through right now in my company is like, what are our core values? And the three words that we're bringing them down to right now are love, generosity, and stewardship. And it's like, stewardship is you've got to have stewardship over your finances. Like you have got to put in the time, you've got to have the intentionality, you've got to have the diligence to sit down and say, everything I have in my life is going to revolve around the cash flow that's coming in and the choices that I make with that money. So I might want to spend some time figuring out what's going on here.
I'm thinking about a couple of conversations that came up Saturday and yesterday that I was privileged to be a part of. We talked about this in our group meeting this morning, Nate and I. We have the privilege to be at least aware enough to know what the problems are with money. But if we don't watch it, we can get real high and mighty in a hurry if we don't have a foundation of why we do what we do. Because we try to get people to be where we are instead of meet them where they are. And the only way we can meet people where they are is to ask them questions about their thinking and why they think the way they do. And if they want to do something different about it, which is at the core, taking ownership of where you are, how you got there, and what you want to do about it, and where you want to go. That's self-awareness. So, Brock, you mentioned that 3-hour deal. That's pretty entertaining. So, I have begun to encourage my children and pay them really well to read certain books. So, just so y'all don't think I'm an awesome dad, I feel like I fail all the time. I'm talking to my 12-year-old and I go, hey, this book, and this book, I'll pay you $50 or $100 each to read under these circumstances. You read it, you document what you learned in about a page and a half, and we spend 15 to 30 minutes discussing what you took from it from your point of view at your age. Her first words were, I don't have enough time. Now, if I would have heard that 3 years ago, guys, I would have really overreacted. So this is how the Lord works on all of our hearts. Because I'm guilty of saying the same thing if I'm being very honest with myself. So I said, okay. I said, let's do an evaluation real quick if you're open for it. She goes, okay, which is a huge step for a 12-year-old girl to even consider listening to her dad. I said, in the time we allow you to have your cell phone today, we're going to take a road trip to a football game and we're going to drive back. And I want you to evaluate how long you're on your phone. And she said, okay. So we did about an hour and a half. I said, you're a way faster reader than me. You could knock out 10 to 20 pages in that hour and a half easy. If you do that Every day for a month, you've already read this book and made $100. Now I want you to tell me what the rate of return of that is for your time per hour paid, and if you're getting that anywhere else. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, I mean that I'm not paying for things that you want, that you could create value and learn from to pay for yourself. So it's not that you don't have enough time, it's that you are choosing to make this a priority or that a priority, which is the reality, Brock and Nate, of everything we get to do daily and everything that benefits us when we have accountability through coaching, because they ask us questions, our coaches do, from a non-judgmental point of view. They're just like, here's the facts you told me, here's what you said you wanted to accomplish, are your actions creating that value in your life? So what are some things that you guys are so grateful for now or recognize when it comes to coaching or accountability, maybe that you didn't realize 10 years ago or 5 years ago or a year ago, and the value that brings moving forward?
So I'll preface the answer with a question. Raise your hand if you feel like you should be further along than you are.
And for those people who may be just listening to the podcast and not watching, all three of us raise our
We
hands.
all, yeah, both hands go up. So the reason I say that is because I am grateful for accountability, mentorship, and coaches that are willing to be vulnerable. And I'm referring to someone specific named Garrett Gunderson, who has had a great impact on all of us. But his willingness to be vulnerable and to share details about his life is what has helped me in my journey. The reason why I asked that question is because he asked that question in one of our masterminds and he raised his hand. We all feel like we should be further along than we are. So if you're listening to this and you feel like you should be further along than you are, everybody feels that way. So don't get frustrated because you feel like you should be further along. Just start taking the correct action.
I'm going to touch on that real quick. I heard Myron Golden say this the other day, and I've been consuming a lot of his stuff because I really like how he connects dots. He said, all of us look at other people's things that they have or do well and wish we could do that. And we continuously gloss over, maybe not even intentionally, the strengths and the skill sets and the abilities God's given us for our purpose. So I use this example, I think Saturday. Nate can sing. I wish I could sing. If I don't watch it, I'm paying more attention to how Nate can sing and I can't than God, what have you created in me that's in your image that can glorify you, that can ultimately do the things that matter the most, which is, be the hands and feet of your kingdom. And so that's where coaching comes in also, Brock. What are your thoughts on that?
Can you remind me the question again? Sorry.
Yeah. The question was, how has coaching played a role, or how does it continue to play a role for you in regard to awareness and growth and failures and those kind of things?
Yeah, it's huge. I meet with one of my coaches every other week, and we dissect, what's going on, how am I talking, what are the conversations I'm having, the questions that I'm asking, how am I going about, how I'm asking myself and doing things with myself. And then I meet with other coaches, of mine on a monthly basis where it's like, all right, well, let's, life outside of work, what's going on with life? What are you doing? How are you getting outside of work? How are you positioning yourself and growing yourself? And before I didn't have it, but I didn't need it as much. I felt like, because I was a teenager. But, even then it was like, I always, I played baseball at a high level. So I always had coaches in my ear that were like, hey, I know you could do better. Let's spend some time doing this. And so, I think it's just an ever evolving and growing cycle with coaching and how you're leveling up your life and getting closer to who you want to be.
That's a really good point that I like, and I think we could tie a bow on today, or we could talk all day about this concept. Now, one of the greatest changes that I've noticed in the conversations we get to have is we're really asking questions related to your overall foundational well-being. And this is what I mean. I'll give a quick example. Hey, yeah, you've got this extra cash flow. Okay. And you've got the ability to benefit sending it out in the world, possibly getting a rate of return. But would that be more impactful than you committing to a personal trainer or nutritionist and building yourself up internally and how you feel about your sleep and your peace of mind and growing and what you're working on? And would that investment in yourself create a larger ripple effect for more clarity on what you want to do next? Those were conversations I didn't have 7, 8 years ago. 6, 7. It was all about the money. No, the money is just the tool. So does your family see you the way you want them to? Are you able to show up at their events? Is that important to you? All these things. And I'm reminded of, I think it's 1 Timothy 5:8. But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. We are, as believers, you guys know, called to be focused on things beyond what matter to us individually and matter to those around us and our family and our relatives and the things that are important to us. So, any parting thoughts, guys, that you want to kind of summarize today? Encouragement moving forward? Anything that really you think is important to get out there today?
I think just an important question that people can kind of take with them is, how important is personal development in achieving the financial life that you want? How important is reading and investing in yourself? Growing the skills, growing in knowledge of an area that you feel less confident in. How important is those things to you right now? Are those things to you right now?
All right. So, worst decisions. There's a little bit of insight that we have got nothing figured out. We're learning and growing daily. And as we all put our hands up, we always think we could be further along than we are. That is a cool thing of how we've been created to be creative and to accomplish new things, but also to give ourselves grace and know that we're always going to want to accomplish more than we have, and how to do that and harness that in a way that is healthy. So we'll transition from that today to next week talking about inflation, which is a hot topic in the political world today. And we're going to just talk about what is inflation. What is it really? Not what are we told, but what is it really? And we're going to try to make that word that I used to have a very minimal understanding of, we're going to try to make it fun and simple to understand. So we appreciate everybody joining us. We do not take lightly you taking 30 minutes to an hour to listen to the conversations we have. It brings value to you. A like, subscribe, a comment, and stars. I think 5 is the most you can give if you like that idea. We'd love to have it. And we'll catch you on the next one.